We're here at the hottest new club in Queens, the Supper Room, right here in the heart of Bayside on Bell Boulevard, with a living legend. It is my honor and privilege to be interviewing this guy, Ed Vecchio. Ed, I have heard about your name for years. When I was out in Hollywood working in the film industry, and I'd come back, everyone said, "Oh, you got to go over to Sly Fox. There's this guy Ed. He just tears it up, man. You love this guy." And I never got a chance to get over there. And then when I finally did, once I was over there. I said, "Oh, this is great," and then the place closed. But it's such a pleasure to meet you. So tell us, Ed, tell us about your career as a DJ.
You never know what direction things are going to take you, Greg. You know, I started with a high school. In high school, my high school had a radio station. I was on there. I had my own show for a couple of years. I interned at a local radio station, answering phones, bumper sticker spotter, the whole thing. I thought that was going to be my career path. I had actually had intentions of going out to Arizona State University, getting my degree there, heading out to Hollywood actually to work on the radio stations out there, and then try to work my way back to New York as either a radio DJ or an MC for like a television show, you know, behind the scenes. I just wanted to be the voice, not the face. That was good for me. It didn't quite work out that way, but you know, my first paying gig was at a roller rink when I was 15, you know, and then from there one thing led to another, and I started working at a couple of local bars in my early 20s, and then one day, after working at a couple of other places, a local college bar for about 7 or 8 years out by me, the park bench of Stony Brook, I was working at a couple of other different places, and I got a call from a guy that had heard of me that wanted me to fill in for one night at the Sly Fox. So I did the one night there. Everybody liked what I did, and a couple of months later, the owner called me up and asked me if I wanted to do a regular thing there. And the rest, as they say, is history.
You know, having a life that's been filled with music all the time, what's that like?
It's been great. You know, as a kid, my mother always told me, she says, you know, unlike your brothers who would watch TV when they were doing their homework and that, she says, you watched your fair amount of TV, and I did. She says, but you would have the radio on, or you'd be playing records as much, if not more, when you were doing your homework or doing stuff. So music has always been like one of those things that I loved. I remember as a kid listening to WABC, Music Radio 77, Ron Lundy and Dan Ingram and all those guys, and I just love their voices, you know, but the music's always been just a part of it. I have like a Rolodex in my head of like thousands of songs all the time. The music, I wake up with music in my head, I go to sleep with music in my head all day, every day.
Look, how much fun that you've had a life and a career of doing something you love.
Yeah, it really is. It's, you know, it's like my passion. It's like my mistress, if you will. You know, I was a full-time sheet metal worker for over 35 years. That's, you know, how I earned my living full-time. But I mean, this is a part-time gig, and for all these years has just been a wonderful outlet for me, and being able to do both and balance it. And now that I'm retired from my career as a construction worker, to be able to do this at my leisure as much as I like, it's a home run.
Well, listen, to go back to the living legend part of it, I used to go to Studio 54. There was Richie Kazar. He was pretty famous, and I've met some of the best DJs around. You just get it. You just have that something. It's hard for me to even define. Is there some way that you could express what it is that you do differently than the other DJs that makes you so popular and them not so popular?
I don't quite know about that, Rich, and I really appreciate the compliment. I really think that the biggest gift that I have is my ability to be able to tap into the vibe of the people, the vibe of the room, and I kind of try to put myself on the other side of the DJ booth, like out on the dance floor. And as I'm playing, I'm saying to myself, about now, would I expect the music to change? And if so, what direction would I want the music to change in? So then I try to change it. You know, most of the time, fortunately, I guess right, you know. That's all I can say.
You all just heard of the other DJs out there. It's about tapping into the vibe of the dance floor, and that you get out there. Because one of the comments that I made is, every song you think, oh, okay, he's building us up to a spot, and then the next song takes you higher, and the next one, and I use the term power. It's like you just have this power and command over the dance floor with the people there, and everybody's just getting it, and it keeps getting more exciting and more exciting and more exciting. That's a sign of a really good DJ to me.
Thank you. You know, I try. I really do. You know, fortunately for me, you know, with a lot of the people like you saw here the other night at the Supper Room, a lot of those people that were here are people that have been listening to me and following me for 15 or 20 years, which to me is, I find it amazing. I find it amazing, you know. But they all show, when I tell them I'm starting in a new place, especially like in the area of Queens, they come out in droves. They come out and, you know, every time that I start in a new place, I always tell the owner or management, you know, you can expect a good crowd for the first night and a consistent crowd thereafter. And so far, fortunately for me, they've never proved me wrong.
Knock on aluminum. Yeah. But the truth is, when Eddie's there, they all come out. So, but talking about that many years, right? So the technology's changed. You know, DJs from it. So when you started off as a DJ, what was the technology then, and what is it now?
It was all vinyl. You know, the turntables at the Sly Fox. You know, the sound system was already installed and anything. So the only thing I had to do was lug in 5 crates of records and then figure out what to play every night. Now the technology has changed, and you know, I come in and at the supper room here, I come in with all of my own equipment. But it's much easier now because everything is self-powered and it's all digital now on computer. There was a time that when CDs began to really become very popular, I had said that at the minute I had to convert from vinyl to CD, that I was going to retire, and I didn't.
Thank God.
And then it got to a point when CDs were starting, you know, were becoming passé, and digital was the way to go. A few years ago, I had to make a decision whether or not I was going to continue on or retire at that point in time, because I knew that if I was going to switch over to computer or to digital, it was going to mean me revamping my entire system and everything. It's an investment of, you know, several $1,000s to do that, and I just wasn't quite sure if I was still going to be if I was still a viable enough product to go out and do that. But after thinking about it for a little while and talking about it with my wife and everything, we made the decision, yeah, go ahead and do it and see what happens. And fortunately for me, it's worked out. I've been very lucky.
What a loving, wonderful guy. You talked to your wife about it, and you made the mutual decision. God bless you. So when that technology started changing, right, and started going that, where were you when Scratch was coming in?
You know what? Scratch was there all along, but I never considered myself like a Scratch type of DJ. I would categorize myself more as a mixer and a blender. You know, I'm more for like a smooth transition from one to the other.
More like a Cuisinart, but
I leave the scratching to the other guys, you know, and that's what I'm talking about as far as technical skills or the turntablists, as it were. I was never one of those guys that did a lot of that stuff, you know. It wasn't really what I wanted to do either, you know. I was more into, I know what I liked to listen to when I would go to a nightclub, what kind of music or what kind of presentation I liked, and certain types I didn't care for. And, you know, the scratching, that wasn't necessarily my thing, so I never really even tried it that much.
So I'm getting out behind you, and I'm looking at your equipment. I'm looking at the computers. I'm looking at what are these things that are spinning around and turning on the computer?
Call that a digital turntable. And basically, even with the with part of it, I can actually still mimic a turntable. I can go back and forth, and I can scratch with what I have. But again, I choose not to do that necessarily. The only time I do stuff like that from time to time is if I'm doing like a reggae set or a hip hop set to an extent, and then I'll maybe do a little bit of that. But there's buttons that you can now push that I can do all sorts of other things, that all the little tricks and things that you used to have to be able to do by hand, you know, like sometimes what they call like a flange or an echo effect, where you had to play the same record on 2 turntables at the same time, and by touch with your fingers you had to slow down the one record in order to create the echo effect, to have it drag like a half a second or a half a beat behind to create like an echo effect. Now all you have to do is hit a button and it's already done for you, you know. So it's a lot easier, you know. It's a lot easier for people to do it now, you know.
We've already just gotten a sense of what a humble guy you are. So, but being a humble guy and wanting to be into the vibe of the dance floor, you're watching everybody. You've got everyone into a kind of a groove. Everybody's really that's out there. You've got everybody dancing, and someone comes over to you right when you've got a whole sequence in your head, and someone comes over and says, "Oh, play this," and you know it's not really what you want to play. What do you do?
Well, it happens all the time. It happens every night.
I was afraid I did it.
No, actually, Greg, what you asked me for, you asked at just the right time. I was able to squeeze it right in. You know, it was right. It was right in the BPMs. It was right in the right vibe and everything. So it was a very easy fit. Depending on what they're asking for, sometimes I'll just tell them outright, not going to happen. But I try to let them down nicely, you know what I mean? It's like, because the way I look at it is this, is that when people come out to a place for a night to go out dancing or, you know, just recreating, the last thing they need after an entire week of putting up with people that they don't necessarily want to deal with or having to put up with attitudes, the last thing they want is an attitude from a DJ when they're just coming up to ask for a song. So if they come up with something that is really not what I plan on doing, I'll tell them no when I ask them if they have something else. Or if it's something they're going to ask for that doesn't fit in right then and there, I try to fit it in within 20 minutes to a half an hour after they ask me.
So just let's go back a little bit though. When you were playing at Sly Fox, the audience that I kept hearing about it, I told you for years I kept coming back from Hollywood for the holidays, and people say, "Oh, you got to go to Sly Fox." By the time I finally made it there, I just loved it. And you had this solid audience. You just brought them here to Supper Room. How is it that you get them to follow you and like that? And the fact that now Supper Room is taking that new place, is holding that new place that Sly Fox used to have. How do you do it?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them, I guess, you know.
Don't you have a mailing list of everybody that know?
You know what I do is, like, I'll put it out on social media or on Facebook or whatever that I'd advertise on there. A lot of them I have as friends, so I'll text message a lot of people. And quite frankly, if I just put the message out to about 5 or 10 of those people, the word spreads and it takes care of itself. I don't have a mailing list or anything else like that. It's just a matter of contacting the people and putting it out on Facebook. Some of these people call me from time to time, but as far as I'm showing up, I'm eternally grateful, and I'm always blown away and very humbled by how many of them still show up for me all the time. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
You got to love the sphere of influence. I mean, I would be like 6 degrees of separation. I'd be so far removed, and I'd always hear about you. So that's part of it. It's everybody knows about you, tells the other, tells the other, tells the other. And suddenly you turn the Supper Room here in Bayside back into that hot scene that you had going on the Sly Fox. God bless you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. No, it's been a great run. Like I said, as recently as a couple of months ago, I actually thought about pretty much retiring from doing any kind of bars or nightclubs anymore. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time. You know, I've been in the business a long time, and if I had just done some mobile parties from time to time, that'd be fine. But you know, this came along, and when I met Margarita, and then I heard, you know, and that it came through you and everything, I was like, well, I got to go and check the place out at least, and talk to Margarita. And I came back and I told my wife, and I said, this place just has a little bit of a different feel than a lot of other places that I've been working at for a long time. I said, I got to give it a shot and see how it goes. I said, I can't quite put my finger on it. I said, but there's a vibe here. I said that I think that my people are going to like. I said, and that I feel pretty comfortable in working in. And I just got to see how it goes. And I'm glad so far. I mean, it's only one night, but it was a tremendous response the first night. As you know, you were here. And again, it's been awesome, you know. Thankfully to those people, they've been sustaining it all along for me.
Listen, it's such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much, and it's great. It's great making sure you didn't go into retirement and that you're here. Everybody, you got to come down to Supper Room every Saturday night. This guy's here. He's turning into a scene that you just got to love, and nobody stays sitting when he's here. Thanks a lot, Ed.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you very much. It's a